I'm Heather Mitchell, 29, and the moment my sister Brittany demanded $15,000 across our parents' dining table, I knew something fundamental had changed. Her eyes gleamed with entitlement as she explained how I owed the family after my success. When I hesitated, Mom delivered the killing blow. Pay up, or you're no longer part of this family. Dad stared at his plate, silent as always. In that moment, looking at their expectant faces, something inside me finally broke. They had no idea what they'd just done. Before I dive into this story, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your location in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe to join our community of survivors and thrivers. Trust me, what happened next in this family showdown will make you rethink everything about blood is thicker than water. To understand why my sister's demand was the breaking point, not just a shocking moment, you need to know about our family dynamic. Growing up in our comfortable Boston suburb, the contrasts between how Brittany and I were treated couldn't have been more obvious, at least to me. Brittany, 3 years older, was our parents' golden child from day one. She had Mom's eyes and Dad's smile, while I took after my grandmother, a woman my mother had always had a complicated relationship with. Maybe that's where it started. Small things at first. Brittany got new clothes, while I got hand-me-downs despite the minimal age gap. When I brought home straight, as Mom would nod absently, when Brittany managed a B, the celebration would last for days. Your sister needs more encouragement, Mom would explain when I questioned these disparities. You're naturally gifted, Heather. Brittany has to work harder. But the reality was different. I remember being 8 years old helping Brittany with her homework while she complained about how boring it was. Even then I knew something was off about our roles. By 13, I was cooking family dinners 3 nights a week while Brittany was too busy with social development to have chores. Our father, Thomas, was more balanced in how he treated us, but he was fundamentally passive. He traveled frequently for his engineering job and seemed to have decided long ago that contradicting Patricia wasn't worth the conflict. Occasionally, he'd slip me extra money or praise when Mom wasn't around, like he was compensating for something he couldn't directly address. "Your mother means well," he'd say. "Family harmony is important." It became his mantra, an excuse for never standing up for me. The college fund situation really crystallized everything. My parents had set up accounts for both of us at birth, equal amounts I was told. But when I was 16, I overheard an argument. Brittany wanted an expensive Sweet 16 party, and they were short on funds. "We can take it from Heather's college account," Mom suggested. "She'll get scholarships anyway. She's the responsible one." Dad protested weakly, but eventually conceded, as he always did. I stood frozen in the hallway, a glass of water in my hand, as my future was casually redistributed. That night, I made a decision. I would never count on them for anything. True to form, when college time came, Brittany attended an expensive private university where she studied communications half-heartedly for 5 years. Her entire education was paid for. Meanwhile, I cobbled together scholarships, worked 20 hours a week at the campus bookstore, and took out modest loans to attend state. I graduated summa cum laude in 3.5 years with a business degree. Mom's response: "It's easier at state, of course." If Brittany had gone there, she'd have graduated with honors too. The pattern continued when Brittany met Ryan Williams during her final year of college. He came from money, worked at his father's investment firm, and proposed with a diamond that made my mother weep with joy. Their wedding was a $50,000 affair, partly funded. I later learned with what remained of my college fund. "Family helps family," Mom said when I discovered this years later. The same words she'd use at that fateful dinner. The clearest memory I have, the one that burned itself into my psyche, happened when I was 16. I came home early from swim practice, the one extracurricular I was allowed because I'd earned a scholarship for it, and heard my parents talking in the kitchen. "Heather's so serious all the time," Mom was saying. "Brittany has the people skills. She's the one with real potential. Heather's smart, Dad countered. She'll be fine. Smart doesn't get you connections. Smart doesn't get you married well. She'll end up supporting herself, probably alone. It wasn't what they said that hurt so much as the certainty in my mother's voice. The way my future had already been decided, Brittany would shine and I would merely survive. But they underestimated what Smart could accomplish when paired with determination. And they had no idea how strong someone becomes when they learn early that the only person they can rely on is themselves. I graduated college in December while most of my peers were enjoying their fall semester senior year. No one from my family attended the ceremony. Brittany was on her honeymoon in Bali, an early wedding present from our parents, and Mom and Dad claimed they couldn't get away midweek. I told myself it didn't matter as I sat among strangers watching other families cheer and take photos. My roommate Rachel came though. Their loss, she said, snapping pictures of me in my cap and gown. 10 years from now, they'll be pretending they were here. She wasn't wrong. With my business degree and marketing concentration, I landed an entry-level position at TechVision, a growing tech firm in Boston. The pay was modest, but it was enough for a tiny studio apartment with a futon that doubled as my bed and a folding table that served as my desk. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. The first space that had ever been completely my own. At TechVision, I met Sarah Davidson, the marketing director, who would become my mentor. Unlike my mother, Sarah saw potential in me immediately. You have good instincts and you work harder than anyone I've ever seen, she told me, after I stayed until midnight finishing a presentation. But you need to learn to advocate for yourself. No one's going to hand you opportunities. It was a revelation. In my family, opportunities were handed out to Brittany. I had never considered that in the real world, I could actually ask for what I wanted. Meanwhile, Brittany and Ryan moved into a luxury home in the suburbs. A wedding gift from our parents, who took out a second mortgage on their house to help with the down payment. At family gatherings, Brittany would complain about contractor issues or property taxes, while I silently ate my mother's pot roast, not mentioning the leak in my apartment ceiling or my second job bartending weekends to pay off student loans faster. When are you going to find a nice man and settle down, Mom would ask during these dinners. You're not getting any younger, Heather. I'm 24, Mom, I'd respond to, which she'd sigh dramatically. Brittany was already married at your age. What neither of them knew was that I was slowly climbing at TechVision. I joined every project I could learn new software on my own time and built relationships throughout the company. Jason Miller, the head of the digital team, became another ally. You're the most detail-oriented person in marketing, he told me. And you understand the tech better than most of the sales team. You're going places. At 26, I was promoted to marketing manager with a substantial raise. I finally paid off my student loans and started saving aggressively. My parents' reaction to my promotion news was tepid at best. That's nice, dear. Did you hear Brittany's redecorating their living room Italian marble, very exclusive? At 27, another promotion, senior marketing director overseeing a team of 8. I finally had enough saved for a down payment on a small but modern one-bedroom condo in an up-and-coming neighborhood. At the housewarming party, attended by colleagues and friends, not family, Sarah raised a toast. To Heather, who built this all herself. Some people are handed opportunities. Others create them. You're the latter, and that makes your success all the sweeter. I nearly cried. It was everything I'd ever wanted to hear from my parents, but never had. Family gatherings grew more strained as my career advanced. Brittany, who'd never worked a day in her life, would make snide comments about corporate drones or how money couldn't buy happiness. Rich coming from someone who'd never had to worry about money a day in her life. Not everyone has a husband to support them, I said, once unable to hold my tongue after a particularly condescending comment. Girl's mom warned, though, her glare was directed solely at me. The family dynamics shifted dramatically when Brittany's perfect marriage imploded. Ryan, it turned out, had been having an affair with his assistant for over a year. Their divorce was ugly and public, especially when it came out that Ryan's family money was mostly for show. His father's firm had been struggling for years. Brittany moved back into our parents' house at 32, devastated and furious. Suddenly, the golden child was tarnished, and I watched my parents scramble to reorient their world around comforting her. I was invited to fewer family dinners, which was fine by me. The distance gave me perspective. I began declining more invitations than I accepted. I had built a life they knew nothing about. Friends who respected me, colleagues who valued my input, a growing reputation in my industry. I dated occasionally, but valued my independence too much to settle. My tiny empire of one was flourishing. Then came the call, Mom insisting I attend the next family dinner. Brittany needs all our support right now, she said, her tone making it clear that missing this obligation was not an option. I had canceled twice before using work as an excuse. This time, with a subtle threat in her voice, Mom added, "Family comes first, Heather. Always." The irony wasn't lost on me. Family first. Except when it came to my needs, my education, my milestones. Still, some part of me, that little girl desperate for approval, agreed to attend. I had no idea I was walking into an ambush. I arrived at my parents' colonial-style home at precisely 6:30 p.m. on a Sunday evening in October, a bottle of decent red wine in hand. The familiar scent of Mom's pot roast greeted me as I walked in. Comfort food. Which should have been my first clue that something was off. Mom only made pot roast when she wanted to create a sense of nostalgia and family unity. "Heather," finally, Mom said, taking the wine with barely a glance. "Brittany's been waiting to see you." Dad hugged me briefly. "Good to see you, kiddo." He looked tired with new lines around his eyes that I didn't remember from the last dinner 2 months ago. Brittany sat in the living room scrolling through her phone. She'd lost weight since the divorce, and her highlighted hair was pulled into a messy bun. A far cry from her usually polished appearance. "Hey," she said, not looking up. "Nice of you to make time for family." I bit back a retort. "Sorry about Ryan." I offered instead, though the divorce had been finalized months ago. She finally looked up, eyes narrowing slightly. "Are you—" The tension was immediate, but Mom swooped in. "Dinner's ready, Heather. Will you pour the wine?" Initial conversation revolved around neutral topics: the Patriots' chances this season, Dad's golf game, the unusually warm fall. I started to think I'd misread the situation until Brittany asked, all casual interest, "So how's work, Heather?" "Still at that tech place." "Tech Vision, yes. Going on 7 years now. And they made you what, some big director?" Her tone was just shy of mocking. "Senior Marketing Director. I've been in the role about 2 years now." Mom jumped in. "Heather just got another raise, didn't you, dear? She was telling me about some big bonus coming up too." I hadn't told her any such thing. The bonus was confidential information that wouldn't be finalized for another month. "It's not confirmed yet," I said carefully. "But it's significant, right?" Brittany pressed. 6 figures significant. The table fell silent. Even Dad looked uncomfortable. "My compensation is private, Brittany." "Oh, come on," she scoffed. "We're family. And it's not like you have anyone to spend it on." Mom cleared her throat. "Heather, your sister is just taking an interest. No need to be secretive." I set down my fork. "Is there something specific you want to know about my finances?" The air in the dining room shifted. Dad suddenly became very interested in his potatoes. Mom and Brittany exchanged a look that confirmed everything. This dinner was planned with an agenda. Brittany straightened in her chair. "Actually, yes. I need $15,000 to get back on my feet. For a new start." The bluntness of it stunned me into momentary silence. Your sister needs to find her own place, Mom added quickly. It's important for her healing process after what Ryan put her through. And you're asking me to fund this healing process. You owe us, Brittany said flatly. After everything this family has done for you. I nearly laughed. What exactly has this family done for me? We raised you. Mom interjected, affronted. We put food on the tablecloths on your back. Basic parental obligations, I countered. Meanwhile, you spent my college fund on Brittany's education and wedding. That's ancient history, Brittany dismissed with a wave. Look at you now. Condo fancy job trips to Chicago for business. You're doing great, and I'm starting over from nothing. Dad finally spoke. Heather, what your sister and mother are trying to say is that you're in a position to help. Family helps family. Has Brittany ever helped me? The words escaped before I could stop them. Brittany's face darkened. I've always been there for you emotionally. That was so absurd, I couldn't even respond. Heather, Mom said, her voice taking on the steely quality I remembered from childhood lectures. Your sister needs this. $15,000 is nothing to you with your salary, but it means everything to her right now. And if I say no? Mom's expression hardened. Then I think you need to consider what family really means to you. If you can't help your own sister in her time of need, then perhaps you don't value this family at all. So it's pay up or accept that you've chosen money over family, she finished, and we'll proceed accordingly. Dad looked pained but silent, his eternal position. Brittany had a slight satisfied smile. She knew Mom would close the deal. They were so confident in their power over me, in my desperate need for their approval, that had driven so many of my childhood actions. Let me make sure I understand, I said slowly. Brittany wants $15,000 from me, not as a loan, but as a gift. And if I don't give it to her, I'm out of the family. Don't be so dramatic, Mom scolded. We're simply asking you to contribute to this family for once instead of only taking. The audacity of that statement hit me like a physical blow. I stood up, my napkin falling to the floor. I need to go. Heather, don't be childish, Mom snapped. Sit down and let's discuss this reasonably. There's nothing reasonable about extortion, Mom. Brittany rolled her eyes. Always the victim. I grabbed my purse from the sideboard, hands shaking slightly. I'll think about it, I said, though I already knew my answer. As I reached the door, Mom called after me. Don't take too long, Heather. Brittany needs to move forward with her plans. I didn't respond. In my car, hands gripping the steering wheel, I finally allowed myself to feel the full magnitude of what had just happened. The family I had spent a lifetime trying to please had just revealed exactly how they saw me, an ATM, not a daughter or sister. The pain was searing but clarifying. For the first time in my life, I saw them clearly. And I knew what I had to do. The barrage began at 7:30 the next morning. My phone lit up with a text from Mom. Brittany is looking at apartments today. When can you transfer the funds? I didn't respond. By noon, there were 3 voicemails. One from Mom demanding to know why I wasn't answering, one from Brittany talking about a perfect place she'd found, and one from Dad, his voice tired. Heather, please call your mother. You know how she gets. I silenced my phone and focused on my work presentation. The demands could wait. They didn't stop. Over the next 3 days, the texts and calls multiplied. Mom's messages grew increasingly hostile. I raised you better than this. After all we've done for you. Your selfishness is breaking this family apart. Brittany alternated between guilt trips and attacks. I would help you if roles were reversed. Must be nice to be so privileged you can ignore family. Ryan was right about you, cold and calculating. The last one actually made me laugh out loud at my desk, startling my assistant. What I didn't expect was the extended family bombardment. Aunt Claire, Mom's older sister, called on day 4. Heather, what's this I hear about you refusing to help Brittany? Your mother is beside herself. Did she tell you she's threatening to disown me if I don't pay? A pause. I'm sure she didn't mean it that way. Your mother has always been dramatic. But family is family, dear. That seems to be the motto lately. 15,000 is a lot, she admitted. But couldn't you give her something for peace in the family? Peace shouldn't have a price tag, Aunt Claire. She sighed. You always were stubborn, just like your grandmother. I took that as the compliment it wasn't intended to be. By the weekend, I was mentally exhausted. I met Rachel for coffee hoping for distraction, but ended up spilling the whole sordid story. That's not family, Rachel said flatly when I finished. That's a hostage situation. They've always been like this, I admitted, just never so explicit. Rachel set down her mug firmly. Heather, listen to me. I've known you since college. You are the most generous, hardworking person I know. You send your parents anniversary gifts even though they forgot your birthday last year. You helped Brittany move when she and Ryan separated despite her treating you like garbage your entire life. If they can't see your value without a price tag, that's their loss. Her words hit me hard. So what do I do? You stop engaging. They're using your responses, or your guilt over not responding, to manipulate you. Set boundaries and stick to them. I nodded slowly. I think I need to block their numbers for a while. Healthy choice. 2 days later, I almost broke my own rule when Dad called. Against my better judgment, I answered. Heather, he sounded relieved. Thank you for picking up. What is it, Dad? Your mother's very upset. Brittany too. I think if you could just help out a little, maybe 5,000 instead of 15, we could put this unpleasantness behind us. The disappointment was crushing. Even Dad, who I'd always thought silently supported me, was choosing the path of least resistance. Is that why you called to negotiate? I'm trying to keep peace in the family by having me pay for it. Again. He sighed heavily. You don't understand the pressure I'm under, Heather. Actually, I think I understand perfectly. After hanging up, I blocked his number too. I thought that might be the end of it. I was wrong. The following Tuesday, I was in a meeting with Jason and our tech team when my assistant interrupted, looking uncomfortable. I'm sorry, Miss Mitchell, but your sister is in reception. She's making quite a scene. My stomach dropped. Tell security not to let her up. Jason raised an eyebrow. Family trouble. You have no idea. But it was too late. Brittany had somehow talked her way past the front desk and burst into our conference room, mascara streaked down her face. You won't answer my calls. Really mature, Heather. 20 pairs of eyes turned to stare as I stood mortified but determined to contain the situation. Brittany, this is my workplace. You need to leave. Not until you stop being so selfish, Mom is right about you. You think you're better than us just because of your fancy job, and... Jason stepped in, his voice calm but authoritative. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave before I call security. Brittany's eyes widened, taking in the room full of professionals watching her meltdown. Fine. But this isn't over, Heather. After she left, Jason walked me back to my office. Take the rest of the day. Family stuff is complicated. I'm so sorry about that. Don't be. My brother once showed up drunk to ask for bail money. At least yours was sober. His smile was kind. But Heather, don't let anyone, family or not, treat you like that. You deserve better. That night, I blocked every family number I had stored. As I was doing so, a voicemail came through from my mother. I hesitated, then played it. Heather Elizabeth Mitchell, your behavior is disgraceful. Brittany told me what happened today. How dare you humiliate her like that? I didn't raise you to be cruel. If this is the person you've become, perhaps it's best we don't speak until you remember your family values. The money was a test and you failed. miserably. A test. The sheer audacity took my breath away. I deleted the message, then blocked her number too. The next day, a call came through from HR. Someone claiming to be my mother had contacted them about an emergency family fund that I had supposedly agreed to contribute to. Thankfully, our HR director knew me well enough to recognize the bizarre request as inappropriate. That was the final straw. This wasn't just family drama anymore. It was affecting my professional reputation. Whatever ties still bound me to the Mitchells were fraying rapidly, and for the first time I was ready to let them break completely. 3 weeks after the ambush dinner, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Heather, it's Ryan. Ryan Williams. Please don't hang up." My ex-brother-in-law was the last person I expected to hear from. Brittany had painted him as the villain in their divorce, though I'd always had my doubts about her version of events. "What do you want, Ryan?" "To warn you." His voice was low, serious. "I heard about what happened with Brittany and your parents." "The money. How did you?" "Brittany's still close with Ryan Jr.'s nanny. She talks when she's been drinking, which is often these days." I sat down suddenly uneasy. "I'm listening." "The 15 grand isn't for a new apartment, Heather. It's for gambling debts." The revelation shouldn't have surprised me yet. Somehow, it did. Gambling. It started small online poker during our marriage. I thought it was under control. Then I found out she'd maxed out 3 credit cards and taken cash advances on 2 more. Almost $40,000 in debt by the time I discovered it. "And that's why you divorced." Part of it. The lying was worse than the gambling, honestly, and she refused to get help. Said she could stop anytime it wasn't a problem. His bitter laugh said everything. The final straw was when I found out she'd been writing checks from our joint account to cover losses. Checks that bounced. My mind was racing. Does Mom know? Your parents know everything. They've been bailing her out for years, both financially and emotionally. Your dad had to take money from his 401k last year to cover some of her debts. They remortgaged their house 6 months ago. The pieces were falling into place. Dad's tired appearance. The second mortgage. The desperate need for my $15,000. Why are you telling me this? A pause. Because despite everything, I don't think you deserve to be manipulated. And because I'm worried about your parents. Their retirement savings are almost gone, Heather. Brittany's dragging them down with her. After hanging up with Ryan, I sat in stunned silence. Then I made a decision. The following day, I took a personal day and drove to my parents' neighborhood. Instead of going to their house, I stopped at the home of Michael Donovan, my father's oldest friend and their financial advisor. "Heather," he greeted me warmly. "What a surprise. Your father didn't mention you were coming by." "He doesn't know." "I need to ask you something, Michael, and I need you to be honest with me." His expression sobered as we sat in his home office. "This is about your parents' finances." "Yes." He sighed heavily. "I can't discuss specific details of their accounts without their permission." "I don't need specifics. Just tell me, are they in trouble?" Michael removed his glasses, pinching the bridge of his nose. "Your father would be furious if he knew we were having this conversation." "Please, Michael, I'm worried about them." "You should be," he said finally. "Your father's retirement fund is depleted to dangerous levels. The house has 2 mortgages now. They've been making withdrawals that are concerning." Because of Brittany, his silence was confirmation enough. "What about gambling debts, specifically?" Michael's eyes widened slightly. "So, you know." I suspected. Ryan confirmed it. "It's bad, Heather. Your sister needs professional help, but your mother, she enables Brittany. Thinks she can love her way through this. Your father knows better, but he won't stand up to them. They asked me for $15,000. That's just the tip of the iceberg, I'm afraid. Armed with this knowledge, I made one last attempt at reason. I called my father at his office from a new number he wouldn't recognize. "Dad, it's me. Please don't hang up." A long pause. "Heather, your mother says we're not supposed to talk to you." "I know about Brittany's gambling, Dad. About the remortgaged house. The retirement funds. Everything." His sharp intake of breath was followed by silence. "Dad, she needs help. Professional help. Not more money to blow on gambling." "It's not that simple," he said, his voice suddenly old and weary. "Your mother believes in her. And Brittany gets so angry when we suggest therapy. Says we don't trust her. And you're going to let them destroy your future because of that. What choice do I have? They're my family." "So am I, Dad. And I'm telling you, there's another way. I can help arrange financial counseling, addiction resources. But I won't just hand over money that'll disappear into slot machines or online poker sites." He was quiet for so long, I thought he'd hung up. "Finally, I'll talk to your mother." 2 days later, I received an email from Mom. "If you're so concerned about our finances, come to dinner Saturday. Bring your checkbook or don't bother coming at all." I replied with a counter-proposal. I would come, but I'd bring a professional financial advisor and addiction counselor instead of cash. To my shock, after 48 hours of silence, Mom agreed, with the stipulation that it remain a private family matter. For the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe with professional intervention, we could find a path forward. I was naive to think it would be that simple. Before meeting with my family, I consulted with Dr. Rebecca Winters, a therapist specializing in family dynamics and addiction. She helped me prepare for what would likely be a difficult conversation. "Your sister may not be ready to admit she has a problem," Dr. Winters warned. "And your mother sounds deeply enmeshed in enabling behavior. Don't expect immediate transformation." "What about my father?" "He's caught in the middle, which is a choice in itself. Remember, Heather, you can offer help without sacrificing your own boundaries." Armed with this wisdom, I arranged for Amanda Patel, a certified financial counselor who had experience with gambling addiction, to accompany me to the family dinner. I also prepared a folder of resources and a written proposal. I would contribute $5,000 toward family counseling and addiction treatment for Brittany, plus another $5,000 in a supervised account to help with legitimate expenses, all contingent on Brittany entering a treatment program. The atmosphere was tense when Amanda and I arrived at my parents' house that Saturday. Mom's smile was tight, Dad looked exhausted, and Brittany was clearly furious but attempting to hide it. "This is unnecessary," Brittany hissed as Amanda introduced herself. "I don't have a gambling problem." "Then you have nothing to worry about from this conversation," I replied calmly. Surprisingly, the initial discussion went better than expected. Amanda laid out the financial reality in terms that couldn't be dismissed, showing how gambling addiction typically progresses and the devastating long-term impacts. Mom tried to interrupt several times, but Amanda was skilled at maintaining control of the conversation. "Heather has proposed a generous solution," Amanda concluded. "Financial support with appropriate safeguards plus resources for recovery. This is an opportunity, not a punishment." Brittany, who had been silently fuming throughout the presentation, suddenly shifted. Her shoulders relaxed, and she wiped away what looked like a genuine tear. "Maybe you're right," she said softly. "I didn't want to admit how bad it's gotten. I'm ashamed." The transformation was so sudden, so complete, that I was immediately suspicious. But Mom was already embracing her murmuring words of support and forgiveness. "We'll get through this together," she assured Brittany, then turned to me with rare approval. "Heather, thank you for arranging this. Amanda, we appreciate your expertise." Dad caught my eye with a look of cautious relief. I wanted to believe this breakthrough was real, but something felt off. Still, we proceeded. Amanda helped us draw up a financial recovery plan. Brittany signed papers agreeing to attend Gamblers Anonymous and meet weekly with a counselor specializing in addiction. I would receive updates on her attendance before releasing funds for her legitimate expenses. As we were preparing to leave, Brittany hugged me. Something she hadn't done voluntarily in years. "I'm sorry, Heather. For everything. You're a good sister." I want to help Brittany. I really do. Her smile didn't quite reach her eyes, but I chose to ignore that warning sign. 2 weeks passed with apparent progress. Brittany attended her first 3 GA meetings. Mom reported she was actively job hunting. Dad called to thank me, sounding more like himself than he had in months. "You saved us," he said simply. "Your mother would never admit it, but you did." I allowed myself to hope that maybe, just maybe, we could build something healthier from the ashes of our dysfunctional family system. Then came the betrayal. It started with a notification from my credit monitoring service. Someone had attempted to open a credit card in my name. Then another alert, a loan application submitted with my social security number. I immediately froze my credit and contacted the fraud departments of the financial institutions involved. The applications had been submitted with my personal information, including scans of my driver's license and recent tax returns. Documents I kept in my home office. With a sinking feeling, I realized when Brittany could have accessed them. During that hug, she'd asked to use my bathroom and had been gone suspiciously long. I'd been so desperate to believe in her change of heart that I'd ignored my instincts. I called my parents' house, hands shaking with rage. Mom answered. "Is Brittany there?" "Heather, yes, she's here. She's been doing so well with the program, you put her on the phone." "Now, what's this about? Your tone is completely—" "She tried to steal my identity, Mom. She attempted to take out loans and credit cards in my name." "That's a felony." "Silence then. That's ridiculous. Brittany would never—" "I have proof. The financial institutions have her information on file. They're investigating now." Another pause. "Let me get your sister." Brittany came on the line, her voice dripping with innocence. "Heather, what's going on? You know exactly what's going on. How could you do this? After I agreed to help you, I have no idea what you're talking about. Stop lying." I rarely raised my voice, but fury had overcome my usual control. "The banks have your information. They're investigating fraud. Do you understand what that means? You could go to jail." Her facade cracked. "You wouldn't press charges against your own sister. Watch me." Mom grabbed the phone. "Heather Mitchell, you listen to me. Whatever misunderstanding has happened, we will handle it as a family. You will not involve the authorities. This isn't a misunderstanding. It's a crime. If you pursue this, you are no longer welcome in this family." "I mean it." "That threat's getting old, Mom." "It's not a threat. It's a promise." I hung up and immediately called the police to file a report. Within hours, I had spoken with a detective specializing in identity theft and provided all the evidence I had. I also contacted my company's legal department, who advised me to file for a restraining order given Brittany's escalating behavior. That night, my doorbell rang repeatedly at 11 p.m. Through the peephole, I saw my father standing alone, looking defeated. Against my better judgment, I opened the door. "Dad, your mother doesn't know I'm here," he said, quickly stepping inside. "Heather, you have to drop the police report." "I can't do that. Your sister made a mistake." "A felony isn't a mistake, Dad. It's a deliberate crime." He ran a hand through his thinning hair. "She's scared, Heather. The police came to the house. Your mother is beside herself." "Good. Maybe she'll finally realize how serious this is. Please. If you ever love this family, that's not fair. Then drop the charges. We'll pay you back whatever it costs to fix your credit. Brittany will apologize. We can start fresh." I studied his face. The face of a man who had spent his entire life avoiding conflict, making excuses, enabling the toxic dynamic between my mother and sister. For the first time, I felt only pity, not disappointment. Dad, I love you. But this has to stop. Brittany needs real consequences, not more bailouts. You and Mom need to stop enabling her. She's your sister. Yes. And I'm your daughter. Has anyone in this family ever stood up for me the way you're all standing up for her right now? His silence was answer enough. I won't drop the charges. And I think you should leave. As I closed the door behind him, I felt a strange mix of grief and liberation. The family I had known was effectively gone. But maybe that was necessary for something healthier to emerge. For all of us. The next morning, I received a text from a number I didn't recognize. This is Brittany. Mom doesn't know I'm texting you. I'm sorry about everything. Please drop the charges. I'll do anything. I didn't respond. Some bridges once burned should stay that way. The decision to completely cut ties with my family wasn't made in a moment of anger. It came after a careful consultation with 3 people I trusted. Rachel, my oldest friend, Sarah, my mentor, and Gregory Walsh, a lawyer specializing in family law and restraining orders. Identity theft between family members is surprisingly common, Gregory explained during our consultation. But that doesn't make it any less serious. You were right to file charges. My mother claims I'm overreacting. You're protecting yourself from financial and emotional harm. That's not overreacting. It's self-preservation. He helped me file for a restraining order against Brittany, which was granted temporarily pending a hearing. I also changed the locks on my condo and installed a security camera at my front door. What about my parents? I asked. They haven't tried anything illegal, but they keep showing up unannounced calling from different numbers. You can formally request no contact. Document everything. If they persist, we can look at legal options. Sarah invited me for dinner at her home the following weekend. As we sat on her patio watching the sunset, she shared something I'd never known. I haven't spoken to my mother in 15 years, she said, matter-of-factly. Some people are shocked by that, but it was necessary for my well-being. What happened? Pattern of emotional abuse manipulation. Not unlike what you've described with your family. I kept trying to maintain a relationship on healthier terms, but she couldn't respect any boundary I set. Sarah swirled her wine thoughtfully. The hardest part wasn't making the decision. It was dealing with the guilt afterward. The social conditioning that insists we must maintain family relationships, regardless of how damaging they are. I'm feeling that already, I admitted. Like I'm doing something wrong by protecting myself. That feeling may never completely disappear, but it does fade. And the peace you gain, that's worth it. After weeks of consideration, I wrote a formal letter to my parents. Asterisk. Dear Mom and Dad asterisk. Asterisk. After careful thought, I've decided to discontinue contact with both of you and Brittany for the foreseeable future. This is not a hasty reaction, but a necessary step for my well-being. Asterisk. Asterisk. For years, I've tried to maintain a relationship despite the constant favoritism, emotional manipulation, and most recently criminal behavior that has been enabled and excused. I can no longer participate in this dynamic. Asterisk. Asterisk. I wish you both well. I hope someday Brittany gets the professional help she truly needs, not just financial bailouts. I hope you can rebuild your retirement savings and find peace. Asterisk. Asterisk. Please respect my decision by not contacting me through any means, phone, email, social media, or in person. Any attempts to circumvent this boundary will be documented and may result in legal action if necessary. Asterisk. Asterisk Heather asterisk. I sent copies by certified mail to ensure they were received, then began the practical aspects of cutting ties. I moved to a new apartment in a secured building where visitors had to be buzzed in. I changed my phone number and email address, keeping my old email only for professional contacts and setting up strict filters. I limited my social media presence and increased privacy settings. The first few weeks were surreal. I kept expecting my phone to ring with my mother's latest guilt trip or my father's attempts at peacemaking. The silence was both liberating and unsettling. It's like grieving Rachel observed over coffee one morning. You're mourning the family you wished you had while adapting to the reality of who they actually are. She was right. Some days I felt immense relief. Others, a profound sadness. Holidays loomed as a particular challenge. For Thanksgiving, Rachel invited me to join her family gathering. Fair warning, my cousins are loud, my uncle drinks too much, and someone will definitely start a political argument before dessert. Sounds perfect, I laughed. The holiday was chaotic, but warmly genuine, a stark contrast to the tense performance-like quality of Mitchell family gatherings. No one was keeping score or holding grudges. Disagreements were forgotten by the time pie was served. As Christmas approached, I declined 3 separate invitations from extended family members who had clearly been recruited as flying monkeys. Your mother is devastated, Aunt Claire reported. She doesn't understand why you won't even answer her calls. I sent a letter explaining everything. But it's Christmas, Heather. Surely you can set aside differences for one day. I've set aside differences for 29 years, Aunt Claire. I'm done. Despite the guilt trips, I held firm. I spent Christmas Eve at a volunteer event serving meals at a shelter, then Christmas Day with Jason and his family, who had graciously included me in their traditions. Meanwhile, Brittany's identity theft case was moving through the legal system. She accepted a plea deal that included probation, mandatory counseling, and restitution. I attended the hearing but sat in the back, leaving immediately after the judgment without speaking to my family. As winter turned to spring, I noticed something unexpected. I was happier. The constant background anxiety of waiting for the next family crisis or manipulation had disappeared. I slept better. I laughed more easily. Even my colleagues noticed the change. "Whatever you're doing, keep it up," Jason commented. After I landed a major account we'd been courting for months. "You're on fire lately." My personal life improved too. I started dating Mark Anderson, an architect I met through a friend's dinner party. Unlike previous relationships where I'd kept partners at a distance from my family drama with Mark, I was open about my situation from the start. "Family estrangement is more common than people think," he said when I nervously explained my situation. "My best friend hasn't spoken to his father in a decade. It doesn't make you damaged or weird. Sometimes it's the healthiest choice." His acceptance was like a balm to wounds I hadn't realized were still raw. 6 months into my new unburdened life, I faced an unexpected test. A local newspaper ran an article about gambling addiction that mentioned Brittany's case as an example of how the problem could lead to criminal behavior. Though she wasn't named, just referred to as a local woman, anyone who knew the situation could identify her. My assistant placed the newspaper on my desk with a concerned look. "Is this about your sister?" "People are talking." I took a deep breath and made a decision. Instead of hiding or deflecting, I addressed it directly in our next team meeting. "Some of you may have seen the article about identity theft and gambling addiction. Yes, it references my sister. This is why I've been so passionate about our company's enhanced security protocols. Identity theft can happen to anyone, even from those closest to them." The honesty was liberating. No more secrets, no more shame. As the 1-year anniversary of my cutoff approached, I received an unexpected email from cousin Daniel, whom I hadn't been particularly close to growing up. He was visiting Boston for business and asked if I'd meet him for coffee. Cautiously, I agreed, half expecting it to be another attempt to pull me back into the family fold. Instead, Daniel surprised me. I admire what you did, he said once we were seated with our drinks. Standing up to Aunt Patricia took courage. You're not here to convince me to reconcile. He laughed. God, no. I'm here to thank you. You're not the first person to be pushed out of the family you know. Just the first to leave on your own terms. That conversation revealed patterns I'd never known about. Other family members who had been ostracized over the years for failing to comply with my mother's demands or Brittany's needs. Daniel himself had been sidelined after refusing to lend Brittany money years ago. They'll tell everyone you abandoned the family, he warned. But some of us know the truth. His words were validating in a way I hadn't expected. I wasn't crazy or oversensitive. The dysfunction was real, recognized by others, and preceded me. Just when I thought I had achieved complete separation, the most unexpected contact occurred. My father showed up at my new apartment building one evening. The security desk called up, and against my better judgment, I agreed to see him in the lobby. He looked thinner, older, but somehow more present than I remembered. Your mother and I separated, he said, without preamble. 3 months ago. I sat down slowly on one of the lobby's stiff couches. I'm sorry to hear that. Don't be. It's been a long time coming. He rubbed his hands together nervously. I've been seeing a therapist. Learning about codependency, enabling behaviors. Things I should have understood 30 years ago. That's good, Dad. I owe you an apology, Heather. Many apologies. I failed you as a father. I stood by while you were treated unfairly. I was too weak to stand up to your mother to protect you from Brittany's manipulations. I let fear of conflict dictate my choices. His sincerity was palpable, but I remained cautious. I appreciate you saying that. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even expect you to want me in your life again. I just needed you to know that you were right to do what you did. And I'm proud of you for having the strength I never had. We talked for almost an hour. He told me that Brittany and my mother had moved to Arizona after declaring bankruptcy. The house I'd grown up in had been sold to pay debts. He was living in a small apartment and rebuilding his life. Would you consider, he asked hesitantly as he prepared to leave, maybe having coffee someday? Not now. Not if you're not ready. But someday. I didn't make any promises, but I didn't refuse outright either. I'll think about it, Dad. As I watched him walk away, I realized I was no longer defined by what I'd lost. I was defined by what I'd gained: clarity, peace, and the freedom to choose my own path forward, including who I allowed into my life and on what terms. The family that had tried to control me through manipulation and guilt no longer held that power. In cutting those ties, I had finally cut myself free. 8 months after my father's surprise visit, I received an email from Cousin Daniel with a subject line that made my heart skip. Thought you should know. B. In trouble again. The message was brief. Brittany had been arrested for fraud in Arizona. She had apparently convinced an elderly neighbor to grant her access to his bank accounts to help manage his finances, and had systematically drained over $30,000 before his daughter discovered the theft. I sat staring at my computer screen, waiting for the familiar surge of anxiety, the urge to somehow fix things, the guilt for not being there. It never came. Instead, I felt a strange detachment. Sad for Brittany's continued destructive path, but clear that it wasn't my problem to solve. I thanked Daniel for the information and closed the email without responding further. That same week, I received a promotion to Vice President of Marketing at TechVision. At 30, I was the youngest VP in the company's history. The celebration dinner with my colleagues felt more genuinely joyful than any family event I could remember. Sarah, who had recently retired, attended as my special guest. I always knew you'd surpass me, she said, raising her glass in a toast. To Heather, proof that we can rise above our beginnings to create the life we deserve. My relationship with Mark had deepened over time. He had recently moved into my condo, bringing his gentle presence and unwavering support into my daily life. He understood my boundaries around family discussion without making me feel broken or defensive. "Everyone has baggage," he said once. "The difference is whether you unpack it or let it define you." In June, I received another unexpected communication, a letter from Thomas Mitchell delivered to my office. Inside was a newspaper clipping. A small announcement from the Arizona Republic reporting Brittany's conviction and 2-year prison sentence. Beneath it, my father had written in his precise engineer's handwriting, "I thought closure might help. She refused all legal assistance or intervention. Patricia is in denial. I've filed for divorce. Take care of yourself. Love, Dad." The word love was underlined twice. Something so uncharacteristic of my stoic father that it made my throat tighten. After considerable thought, I sent a short email to his new address. "Thank you for letting me know. I hope you're taking care of yourself too. Coffee someday might be possible. Not yet, but someday." His reply came within minutes. "Whenever you're ready. No pressure. I'll be here." In early autumn, I attended a marketing conference in Chicago. During a networking dinner, a woman approached me, professionally dressed about my mother's age, with kind eyes and a warm smile. "Heather Mitchell, I'm Eleanor Richards. I worked with your father at Westridge Engineering years ago." We chatted politely about the conference marketing trends and the unseasonably warm Chicago weather. Just as I thought the conversation was winding down, she touched my arm gently. "I hope you don't mind me saying this, but Tom talks about you all the time. He's so proud of what you've accomplished." I swallowed hard. "We're not very close these days." "I know," she said simply. "He's told me everything. About your mother, your sister, all of it. He's doing a lot of work on himself these days." "That's good to hear. He keeps a file of your professional accomplishments. Newspaper mentions industry awards that feature in Marketing Monthly last year." Her smile was gentle. "Just thought you should know that." That night in my hotel room, I found myself looking through old family photos on my laptop, something I hadn't done since the estrangement began. There were few pictures of just my father and me, but I found one from a rare day when he'd taken me fishing without Brittany or Mom. I was about 7, proudly holding up a small fish, beaming at the camera. Dad's hand rested on my shoulder, his expression a mixture of pride and that ever-present worry that seemed to follow him everywhere. I sent him the photo with a simple message, "Remember this day, it was a good one." His response came the next morning. "One of my best memories. I should have made more of them with you." Back in Boston, I finally agreed to meet my father for coffee at a neutral location, a small cafe halfway between my office and his apartment. We met on a Tuesday afternoon, both of us nervous, both trying not to show it. "You look well," he said after we'd ordered. "Happy." I am happy I realized it was completely true. Work is good. I'm in a healthy relationship. I've built a life I'm proud of. Without our help, he acknowledged. Or rather, despite our interference, we talked cautiously at first, then with increasing openness. He told me about his therapy journey, his growing understanding of how he had enabled both my mother's controlling behavior and Brittany's manipulation. I told him about my promotion, about Mark, about the life I was building. "Patricia contacted me last week," he said as we were preparing to leave. "She wants me to send Brittany money for her commissary account." I said no. The simple statement represented a seismic shift in the man who had spent decades saying yes to avoid conflict. "That must have been difficult," I said. "Easier than I expected, actually." He smiled slightly. "Turns out, standing up for yourself gets less terrifying with practice." As fall turned to winter, our cautious reconnection continued through occasional emails and monthly coffee meetings. I maintained firm boundaries. I didn't ask about my mother or Brittany, and he respected my wishes not to discuss them beyond necessary information. We were building something new from scratch, something tentative, but potentially healthy. During one of our meetings in December, Dad mentioned that cousin Daniel's daughter Ashley, now 19, was considering dropping out of college due to pressure from her mother. Clara wants her to come home and help with the family business. The girl's miserable, apparently. Reminds me of someone else I know. I thought of my own struggles at that age, trying to balance family expectations with my own dreams. Is she in Boston? Would it be okay if I reached out to her? Dad's face brightened. She'd like that, I think. The following week, I met Ashley for lunch. I recognized the signs immediately. The constant phone checking, the anxiety about letting family down, the belief that her own desires were somehow selfish or wrong. I love psychology, she confessed. But Mom says it's impractical that the family needs me at the store. What if there were options that didn't require choosing between yourself and your family? I asked. Compromises boundaries. Is that possible? The hope in her voice was heartbreaking. It's not always easy, but yes. I shared resources. Books that had helped me, the name of a good therapist, scholarship, information. And you can call me anytime. Family dynamics are complicated, but you're not alone in this. As I walked her to her car, she hugged me impulsively. Thank you. No one's ever just listened without telling me what to do before. I watched her drive away, realizing that my painful journey had equipped me to help someone else navigate similar waters. Perhaps that was the silver lining in all of this. The ability to recognize toxic patterns and extend a hand to those still caught in them. That evening, I received a text from a blocked number that had somehow gotten through. I hear you're corrupting Ashley now too. Can't leave well enough alone, can you? Some things never change. Mom, I blocked the number again without responding, but the message didn't upset me as it once might have. Instead, it reinforced that I had made the right choice. The cycle of manipulation and control continued, but I was no longer part of it. 2 years after cutting ties with my mother and sister, I had crafted a life of genuine connections, professional fulfillment, and hard-won peace. The journey had been painful, but the destination was worth every difficult step. 3 years to the day, after I walked out of my parents' dining room, refusing to be extorted for $15,000, I sat on the balcony of my new home, a beautiful townhouse Mark and I had purchased together. Beside me, Luna, our rescue golden retriever, dozed contentedly in the spring sunshine. Below, Mark was grilling for the small gathering of friends who would arrive soon to celebrate our engagement. The date wasn't a coincidence. I had chosen it deliberately, a quiet acknowledgement of how far I'd come from that painful night. What had felt like an ending had actually been a beginning, the start of a journey toward authentic living and genuine connection. Penny, for your thoughts. Mark's voice pulled me from my reflection as he joined me on the balcony, wiping his hands on a kitchen towel. Just thinking about time. How 3 years can change everything. He squeezed my shoulder gently. For the better. Definitely for the better. My professional life had flourished alongside my personal healing. 6 months earlier, I had left TechVision to start my own marketing consultancy, specializing in helping tech startups develop authentic brand identities. The risk had paid off beyond my expectations. We already had a waiting list of clients and had hired 3 employees. Jason had been one of my first clients. About time you stopped making other people rich, he'd said when I announced my departure. Sarah came out of retirement to serve as an advisor, bringing her decades of experience and wisdom. I always knew you had this in you, she told me. You just needed to believe it too. The most surprising development had been the gradual rebuilding of my relationship with my father. Our monthly coffees had evolved into regular dinners. Sometimes Mark joined us, sometimes it was just the two of us. The conversations had deepened, addressing the past with increasing honesty. I should have protected you, Dad said during one particularly emotional dinner. That was my job as your father and I failed. I'll always regret that. You were trapped too in your own way, I replied. We all were. His divorce from my mother had been finalized the previous year. He'd started dating again recently. A kind widow he'd met at a community garden project. He seemed lighter, more present, more genuinely himself than I could ever remember him being during my childhood. We had established clear boundaries. I didn't ask about my mother or Brittany, and he respected my decision not to discuss them. Occasionally, he would share necessary information. Brittany's release from prison, my mother's continued denial of any problems. But these updates were brief and factual, not emotional manipulations. The most difficult moment had come 6 months earlier when I received a letter from Brittany's rehabilitation counselor. With Brittany's permission, the counselor explained that part of her recovery process involved making amends where possible. Brittany wanted to know if I would be open to receiving a letter from her. After discussing it with Dr. Winters, who had continued to be an invaluable guide throughout my journey, I declined. Forgiveness doesn't require reconciliation. Dr. Winters had reminded me. You can wish her well on her recovery journey without re-establishing contact. I had responded to the counselor with a brief note expressing my sincere hope for Brittany's successful recovery, but explaining that I wasn't in a place to reopen communication. I sent a copy to my father, who had supported my decision completely. Recovery is Brittany's responsibility, he said. Your well-being is yours. Both can exist separately. As the afternoon progressed, our backyard filled with the people who had become my chosen family. Rachel and her husband arrived with their 1-year-old daughter, whom they had named Heather. A tribute that still brought tears to my eyes. Jason and his wife brought homemade sangria. Sarah, now in her 70s but still vibrant, held court by the fire pit, dispensing wisdom and witty observations to anyone who would listen. Dad arrived last, slightly nervous in social situations as always, but making a genuine effort. He brought Eleanor his new girlfriend, who fit seamlessly into the gathering with her warm laugh and easy conversation. As we gathered around the table for dinner, I looked at the faces surrounding me. People who had chosen to be in my life, whom I had chosen in return. People who valued me for who I was, not what I could give them or how well I fulfilled a predetermined role. Later, as the evening wound down, Dad pulled me aside. I have something for you, he said, handing me a small wrapped package. Not a gift exactly. More of a return. Inside was a framed photo of me at my college graduation. The ceremony my family hadn't attended. It was a professional shot. I didn't recognize me in cap and gown, radiant, despite standing alone. How did you get this? I went back later, he admitted. Paid the event photographer. I needed to have it. Even then, I knew I was failing you by not being there. I just didn't have the courage to do anything about it. I hugged him, this imperfect man who was finally learning, as I had, that it's never too late to change course. After everyone left, Mark and I sat together on the porch, swing Luna at our feet, enjoying the quiet. Good day, he asked, though he already knew the answer. The best. I never thought I'd feel this. A hole. The journey hadn't been about punishing my family for their behavior. It had been about saving myself from a toxic system that would have continued draining me emotionally, financially, and spiritually if I had allowed it. The cutting of ties wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of my authentic life, one built on mutual respect, genuine affection, and healthy boundaries. Dr. Winters had once told me that the most profound form of forgiveness isn't saying what you did was okay, but rather, what you did no longer has power over me. I had reached that place, not through reconciliation with those who had hurt me, but through reconciliation with myself. As the sun set on that anniversary day, I realized the greatest gift of my journey wasn't what I had lost, but what I had found the courage to define family on my own terms, to create connections based on love rather than obligation and to finally fully become the person I was meant to be all along. If you've made it to the end of my story, I hope it's given you something valuable. Perhaps permission to examine your own family dynamics, courage to set necessary boundaries, or simply the knowledge that you're not alone in your struggles. Have you ever had to make a difficult decision for your own well-being? What helped you through it? Please share in the comments below. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if this resonated with you. Thank you for being part of this journey with me. And remember, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is to choose yourself. Wishing you peace and strength on your own path to healing.